Welcome to Healing Horizons, where each week we share the latest news and research in trauma-informed care, positive and adverse childhood experiences, and psychological safety. I'm Allison Sebula.
And hi, everyone. I'm Bree Twombly, and we both work at the 10 Collective, where we are working to create a world where people genuinely care for one another. We want you to consider hiring us to help implement trauma-informed care and psychological safety-based programs and policies so you can better care for your employees. And in turn, they can better care and partner with the communities that you serve. So check us out on our LinkedIn page or our website, which is 10-collective.com.
Okay, let's get into it. Today is Thursday, July 18th, 2024, and content advisory. We will be talking about trauma and sometimes violence. So in trauma-informed care news, we have a few pieces from the Australia-New Zealand region today. So some interesting Maori words on this one. Gisborne Kura's trauma-informed teaching sets blueprint for other schools. So this is out of New Zealand and started before COVID-19, and staff saw an increase in issues in children, including self-harm and depression. And so there's now a holistic approach to learning in its third year. So I've seen a huge reduction, says one of the staff members. I used to have 3 drawers of vapes that I've collected. I've got no vapes now. Our kids aren't vaping. No incidences of vaping and no incidences of self-harm. And so some other quotes that we really liked from this article: they don't even reach the cortex, which is at the upper level of the brain where all the learning is taking place, because they're in survival mode. They are in the trauma brain all the time. So it is important for us to shift them out of the trauma brain so that they can reach the cortex where the learning is happening. And so that is trauma-informed language. We love to hear that. Very wonderful to have the basis be in the brain science. They said it's hard for people to understand that no learning is actually even taking place. Why waste your time on learning? Yes, if you work for a school, here it is. This is the point. If you can start at the bottom, making sure that our kids are well, that they're in a good space and a place for learning becomes easier and they're ready for it. So great. Way to go, New Zealand. Okay, so innovative model of care to bring improved access to health for Queensland, New South Wales border communities. So this is out of Australia. The McIntyre Health Alliance are celebrating that their application for an innovative model of care grant to implement the new Indigenous Wellness Connect program has been successful. The $1.5 million grant will support a 4-year trial of an allied health, primary care-led digital health and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander chronic conditions management model. So let's see. They one of the significant benefits of the project will be the cross-border data sharing, which will mean that a patient only has to tell her story once. Yes. Here it is, folks. Okay, Australia and New Zealand just absolutely crushing it this week in trauma-informed care. Healthcare professionals will have access to the most up-to-date health information. Fantastic.
Yep, that one made me have a big smile on my face when I heard that one.
We don't get to see it very often, but
No,
this is the change. The change that we need. Okay.
The next is just an article called "Improve Healthcare Facilities by Creating Human-Centered Spaces," and we just wanted to kind of talk about this and share this one because we've been talking a lot over the past few weeks about kind of human-centered and trauma-informed spaces and design and what that means. And this article really talks about what is it, why is it important. They also shared some data behind it. So they talked about how a Texas elementary school transformed into a trauma-informed school in 2017 and saw clear results. Suspensions decreased from 445 a year to 19. The school passed its state exams for the first time in its history, and teacher retention dramatically improved. And then the same happened in a school in Hawaii. The number of behavioral incidents went from 2,260 to 1, and out-of-school suspensions went from 2,277 to 0. The graduation rate increased by 10%, and the number of teacher vacancies was cut in half. So just by making sure that the environment feels safe, embodies trauma-informed principles, we saw in those two studies some great improvements for the students as well as for the employees. So kind of all across. So that was great to see. So we will link that article in the blog after this if you want to go and kind of learn more about what kind of trauma human-centered design is. The next is Louisiana Department of Health launches the State Health Improvement Plan, a roadmap to improving health through 2028. So Whole Health Louisiana is Louisiana's cross-sector initiative created to prevent, recognize, and treat childhood adversity and its effects utilizing a trauma-informed approach. The report represents the state's first ever plan to systematically address childhood adversity and trauma in Louisiana systems of care and support. So they identified 4 different priority areas. So collaboration, awareness, prevention and healing, and workforce. And so each of them talks kind of in detail in the report of what that is. And then they lay out their goals and objectives. So I'll just share one of the objectives that they have. And so this is under the area of collaboration. And so it's to advance efforts to create a coordinated single point of entry system across state agencies for individuals who may need to access support and resources, decreasing the need for individuals to engage in redundant or re-traumatizing intake processes across entities. So yay, Louisiana, for thinking about that too. Maybe you can reach out to Australia for some guidance and like really how to do that. So again, really excited to see that. So we'll link to that report so you can kind of go through it. It's a little bit of a longer report, but some great information in there. And really nice to see how kind of they have laid out their goals and objectives in there.
Is
so
Louisiana the place where they have to have the commandments posted in classrooms now? Is that?
Oh,
okay. I don't know. It might
so.
be.
I honestly, because of just everything that is going on, am like, and I've gone into like the weeds in some states and like bills that are interesting what people are saying. So I think it was.
Well, because if it is, I just want to say that I think sometimes it's really easy to get cynical and depressed about certain things that we see in the news and maybe not paying attention to other really good things happening in the news. And so, you know, for every like random thing that we think is a step backward, this is a step forward, you know? So, just hoping that brightens your day because there's plenty of things to celebrate right now in the United States.
Yes, and I just confirmed it is Louisiana. That
okay.
So yes,
multiple things are happening at once.
Yeah.
Okay, so the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services announces an $11 million investment in family-based behavioral health services for children with complex needs. So, treatment services designed to keep children who have complex behavioral health needs in homes and communities and out of inappropriate boarding. The department is partnering with Rapid Resources for Families to expand access to family-centered therapeutic programs, enabling children to receive trauma-informed treatment in a home-based setting. Wow. Okay, children do best when they are in a home environment and surrounded by supportive community. I'm going to start crying. Okay. Wow. Love to hear it. Okay. Then that was said by North Carolina Health and Human Services Secretary Cody H. Kinsley. We're investing in family-centered services that provide a safe, nurturing place for children with complex needs to get the right level of support when and where they need. I don't think I'm able to finish this one. I'm going to start crying. I mean, this is literally the world we're trying to create at 10 Collective, where we care about each other, and reading news like this is music to our ears. So they're contracting with Rapid Resources for Families to expand access to intensive alternative family treatment, IAFT, a specialized program that enables children with complex behavioral health to receive family-based services through a therapeutic foster home with counseling and psychiatric supports. So they serve children whose complex needs make it difficult to find a safe and supportive placement. Wonderful, wonderful news, and we will be following along. So, Morgan County Child Advocacy Center helps abused children in the county. This is in Alabama. So, wow, we're covering the South today. That is
Mhm.
great. Okay, essentially, what happens is when a report is received from either DHR. So, let's see, that's the Department of Human Resources. No, what do we think that is? Or law
I
enforcement.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure exactly what it stands for, but I'm guessing it's probably their department that takes like child protection. Like
I'm trying to like all the letters that I
I
can think
know.
of, like health and resilience, but health and um I have a thing about always wanting to know what all the acronyms are.
Oh, it is. It's
Um,
Alabama Department of Human Resources. Child care, food assistance, child support, child protective services, adult protective services, all falls underneath that category.
okay, I guessed right the first time, as counterintuitive as that was. Fantastic. So, when a report is received from either DHR or law enforcement and involves a child where there's suspicion that abuse has occurred, instead of taking that child to the police department and questioning the child about what has happened, we have trained forensic interviewers that are able to gather that information as part of that investigative process. Great. Are they trauma informed?
I'm hoping.
Okay. We're hoping this is a step in the right direction. And Alabama, if you're listening, make sure those forensic interviewers are trauma informed. So, in addition to the forensic interviews, they also provide, they provide a trauma focused cognitive behavioral therapy. Okay, I'll take it. They report it is the gold standard of therapy for the ages they serve that have experienced trauma. Okay. The center has a dog present to help with tough situations. Okay, now that I can get behind. That actually that makes me really happy. That is the kind of thing, yes, that's what we like to see. So dogs have been shown to create a sense of safety for children who don't want to be alone with an adult, especially in a room with a closed door. Okay, we got so trauma informed by the end of this one. Fantastic. So really, really thinking that through. Um, the thing with our work is, a lot of people just don't understand, and for good reasons, right? Why would we? Like, just the basics of trauma informed care in terms of when do we feel safe, when do we feel unsafe, when might we want a dog present, when might we not want to be alone with certain people. And so the fact that they're doing this in Alabama is fantastic, and it just shows that the reach of trauma informed care is now getting to be very wide. So I hope we keep sharing pieces like that.
Yeah, that was a great one. And there's a great kind of example of how the dog was used in like one particular case in the article. That is just like really great if you want to learn more about that.
On our blog.
Yep. So Early Childhood Authority develops human capital strategy to enhance early childhood workforce. This one is out of Abu Dhabi. So the Abu Dhabi Early Childhood Authority has developed its human capital strategy, which mainly focuses on ensuring the availability of a specialized and highly competent workforce in early childhood development. So they're making sure that there is kind of a common skill knowledge base for everyone who is going into the field, for all of the professionals. And one of the competencies that they established was understanding the impact of adverse childhood experiences and how to address them effectively. And so they're really trying to use kind of a holistic approach to understand all of the evolving needs of children and families who are coming into their services. So great to see that they're taking that holistic approach, that they're really thinking about ACEs, how that could be impacting behaviors, how that could be impacting the professionals who are engaging with the children. I would love to see some positive childhood experiences. How are they talking about that? How are they working to kind of strengthen that within the classrooms and the field? But step in the right direction.
Yep.
The next is teacher residency program improves retention and diversity. So amid Colorado's severe teacher shortage, a teacher residency program from the Public Education and Business Coalition is improving teacher retention and diversity with the help of a grant from Kaiser Permanente. It was $1.5 million 2-year grant that was awarded in the winter of 2023. And the program is expanding mental health support and reducing financial barriers for pre-service teacher candidates with a focus on candidates of color. So by giving teacher residents training on social, emotional, and trauma-informed practices, the residency has improved teacher retention rates long-term. 81% of teachers who completed the residency are still teaching after 5 years, compared with the national average of only 55%. And the number of racially diverse teacher candidates in the residency has risen by 8 percentage points. And so things that this grant does is address some of the financial hurdles, such as licensure exams, living expenses, emergency funds for those who are trying to earn their license. And these barriers are particularly pronounced for under-resourced populations. So really important work to remove barriers and to support people to have the kind of skills and knowledge that they need in order to feel successful and support children in classrooms.
Great. Okay, so now our adverse childhood experiences research news. So adverse childhood experiences could cost Singapore about 1.18 billion a year, a study. So the latest study was published in June 2024 in the Journal of Psychological Trauma, Theory, Research, Practice, and Policy. And it involved surveys conducted between 2016 and 2018 with a representative sample of 4,441 Singapore residents from an earlier study. They were asked about ACEs such as bullying, witnessing domestic violence, and living with family members who had mental illness or were in jail. People have gone through traumatic experiences in their childhood, such as emotional neglect or parental death or separation, could cost Singapore about 1.18 billion in absenteeism, reduced productivity, and the use of healthcare resources. And it's interesting because this is my elevator pitch when people ask me what I do for work. I'm like, we're just trying to help the government save money, basically, because everyone's like, well, why would they do this work? And it's like, well, because it's actually going to save you a lot of money if you protect children up front and reduce stress in childhood, because you're going to pay for it later on. So these studies are very useful. And California published one a couple years back that said basically the same thing. And California has a huge economy. So it's a really big number. And that's why, California has really taken a lead in trying to prevent trauma through ACEs awareness. So this is one of the key findings of a recent study by the Institute of Mental Health on the economic costs. So the healthcare and productivity cost for a person who had at least one ACE was $767 more every year compared with a person who had no such experience. Damn, that is a good little statistic right there. I love that. Okay, and $2,168 more for someone who faced 3 or more ACEs. Good one. Okay. Because we have to have the data, even if we don't like to hear this, particular news, we have to have this data so that we can work on addressing these problems. Mm-hmm. Okay, impact of adverse childhood experiences and mental health on school success in autistic children. Findings from the 2016 to 2021 National Survey of Children's Health. This is in the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders, May 2024. So combined 2016 and 2021 data from the National Surveys of Children's Health for children ages 6 through 17 identified by parents as having autism spectrum disorder. So a total of 4,997 children and adolescents with ASD were included in the analysis. They had a mean age of 11.7 years, and the majority were boys, so almost 80%. And approximately half of the sample lived below 200% of the federal poverty level. I didn't know there was an association between poverty and autism. Did you know that? Okay, I didn't know. The mean number of reported, it's half. It's half. So it's not correlated, right? Because if it's half and half, then that's even.
Yeah, and I don't know. This was just how the data set that they had for their sample. So I don't know how representative it is of
right.
Like the larger spectrum.
Got it. Okay. The mean number of reported ACEs was 2, and the most frequently reported ACE was bullying or exclusion. That's a bonus ACE. That's not on the original 10. Mm-hmm. Okay. Followed by parental divorce and financial hardship. So ACEs were significantly associated with school outcomes. With increased ACEs, autistic children experienced a significant decrease in the odds of school attendance, grade progression, and school engagement. So, although depression and anxiety symptoms were associated with school outcomes, they did not fully explain the strong relationship between ACEs and school success. And the researchers also observed a significant correlation between participants' race and school outcomes, as Black children and adolescents with autism spectrum disorder had significantly higher school attendance and engagement and had a 49% greater likelihood of achieving a single level increase on the composite school index for academic success relative to their white peers. Wow, wait, so Black students are doing better.
in this particular
Interesting.
setting.
What a fascinating. Yeah, I want to look way more into that. So again, you can go to our website, 10-collective.com after this is over and check out our blog. You could also sign up for our newsletter. We send these out every Friday. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And the next study is a little kind of connected to that. And so the Pennsylvania Department of DHS, Department of Human Services. I was like, Health Services. Now my brain was going through all the acronyms.
Right. Every acronym. Yeah.
Human Services releases new research on trauma-informed care for disabilities. So this is in the Positive Approaches Journal. And they published kind of their latest journal, and the edition really provides recent research aimed at assisting people with mental and behavioral health challenges, intellectual disabilities, autism, and other developmental disabilities. The focus is on trauma-informed care and best practices for supporting affected individuals. So one example of an article that's in there is data discoveries, where the initial findings suggest a higher prevalence of trauma among individuals with autism, highlighting the need for trauma-informed and resilience building within treatment. So there's a ton of different articles in there. So we'll link to kind of the overall journal, and you can take a look in that. An important area where we're talking about the intersection of trauma and intellectual and developmental disabilities, which can often get kind of left out of conversations. So encourage you to go take a look at that. And the next is Women's Justice, a preliminary assessment of women in the criminal justice system. The Women's Justice Commission is a multi-year research, policy, and communications initiative that documents and raises awareness of the unique challenges facing women in the justice system and builds consensus for evidence-based reforms that enhance safety, health, and justice. It's chaired by former U.S. Attorney General Loretta Lynch, and the commission includes 15 other high-profile, ideologically diverse leaders representing law enforcement, courts, corrections, medicine, research, and advocacy. So some of the findings that you can read about in here are that women's pathways to criminal justice system involvement differ from those of men. Most system-involved women have experienced some form of childhood abuse or trauma. Many are at risk for experiencing violent victimization by an intimate partner, and women in jails and prisons consistently report higher rates of mental health and substance use disorders than their male counterparts. Women are 4 times more likely than men to self-report sexual victimization by other incarcerated people in prisons, and more than twice as likely in jails. Lesbian, gay, and bisexual women are overrepresented in the criminal justice system and far more likely than their heterosexual counterparts to report sexual victimization during confinement. And more than half of women in prison are parents to minor children, and estimates suggest that at least 3 out of 4 women in jails are mothers. Prior to their incarceration, mothers were more than twice as likely as fathers to be the sole or primary caretaker of their children. So this, again, reinforces a lot of the things from the original ACEs study of some of kind of the outcomes potentially later in life. So again, how are we thinking about prevention? The use of trauma-informed courts, if we're knowing that so many people have histories of trauma, how are we considering that within kind of the justice system? There's a lot of re-traumatization that's talked about in this study. And then there's potential trauma for children when their mothers are incarcerated. So lots to consider and think about and kind of reflect on throughout this report.
All right. So changing neighborhood income deprivation over time, moving in childhood, and adult risk of depression. So JAMA Psychiatry, July 2024. This cohort study found that individuals who lived in neighborhoods during childhood that were more income deprived were more likely to develop depression in adulthood. The experience of moving during childhood, whether living or in a deprived or non-deprived neighborhood, was associated with significantly higher rates of depression in adulthood compared with those who did not move. The cohort study included the whole population of over 1 million people born in Denmark from January 1st, 1982 to December 31st, 2003, who resided in the country during their first 15 years of life. Okay, the study uncovered a striking link between frequent childhood relocations and mental health. I guess this is the kind of study you get to do when you have just a little country of, like, right, is the population like probably less than LA County? It's just like, we'll just survey everybody really quick. Obviously, it's not the whole population, but it's just interesting to see numbers this big and, kind of at a country level. I don't know. It's great. Okay. The study uncovered a striking link. Okay. So individuals who often move before age 15 are over 40% more likely to be diagnosed with depression in adulthood. Oh my gosh. There's like some adults I need to tell about this. Hey, it's not your fault. Children who moved once between ages 10 and 15 were 41% more likely to develop depression compared to those who did not move. Moving twice or more during this period increased the risk to approximately 61%. Also makes me think of military kids, indicating that the effect of relocation was more pronounced than the impact of growing up in a deprived neighborhood. Really? Wow. Fascinating. So during those formative years, children are building their social networks through school, sports groups, and other activities. So each time they have to adapt to something new can be disruptive. So we potentially need to find new ways to help people overcome these challenges. Wow. See, we're learning more and more about just how important social networks are. And that's great. Relationships and community, so important. Okay, next one. Developing conspiracy theories. Conspiracy beliefs are correlated with perceived childhood adversity. Not surprised. Okay, Evolutionary Behavioral Sciences Journal, July 2024. The study was conducted with 360 participants from Poland, ranging in age from 18 to 79, with slightly over half being men. These participants were surveyed online to assess various aspects of their personality, childhood experiences, and belief system. So the dark triad traits were assessed using the short dark triad questionnaire, which includes 27 items measuring Machiavellianism, narcissism, and psychopathy. People who hold stronger conspiracy beliefs are more likely to report that their childhood was stressful and threatening. With such beliefs, while such beliefs were not associated with a general index of pace of life, they were associated with the dark triad traits and problematic coping strategies. So we assert that conspiracy beliefs may be an adaptive response to early life experiences and difficult childhood conditions. Wow. Would love to see that in the US population. I just finished this book called Fantasyland about how prone Americans are to not understanding what's real and what's not real, and why it's like called a 500-year history. So it's 500 years of it was a very long book. So I'm just wondering what that would look like here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that study was interesting to me, and now I want to read that book.
Yes.
It's
a long one.
So to complete our news segment for today, we have a piece of psychological safety news. This is from the Harvard Business Review. So they studied more than 10,000 employees in a large organization and discovered that new hire psychological safety eroded quickly. On average, newcomers joined the organization with higher psychological safety relative to their more tenured colleagues, then lost it and waited years to reach levels comparable to when they arrived. So it held across years before, during, and after the COVID-19 pandemic, and across characteristics like race and gender. It implied that it could take 20 years or more for employees to get back to their levels of psychological safety they had when they started. 20 years.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So they talked about how without psychological safety, new hires might choose to lay low and keep their ideas and concerns to themselves, which can end up putting teams and companies at risk of making bad decisions, experiencing preventable failures, or missing out on improvement ideas. They gave kind of three main strategies for supporting that, all grounded within creating psychological safety. So thinking about strategically assigning new hires to departments that have positive climates, to support socialization and psychological safety. And if there's low psychological safety, to make sure that there are kind of manager trainings and coaching that are happening to be able to support the development of psychological safety within their teams. To use framing to establish and reinforce the need for interpersonal risk taking to do a good job at work. So an example that they gave was to frame work as complex and uncertain. That helps to clarify the expectation that things will go wrong. And the sooner that someone notices and speaks up about it, the better off everyone is. So again, that clear expectation and communication.
Yes.
And then when colleagues and managers respond to newcomer questions, ideas, or mistakes with curiosity and support, they can prevent the loss of psychological safety. And they really reiterated that appreciation is not about tolerating repeated failures, but rather about ensuring learning. So really it's creating that culture of learning and supporting that psychological safety. So very interesting, that 20 years.
I think about that a lot. Like, how long does it take for someone to recover their sense of safety, and how long does workplace trauma last? Ooh. And by the way, this is something we would love to help your organization with. We can help implement psychological safety at your workplace through training series and one-on-one coaching and small group coaching. So please be in touch. We would absolutely love to help you with that. And we feel very strongly that we can create a psychologically safe workplace at your workplace. So yeah, and we love to do that kind of work, because we are creating caring workplaces and communities at 10 Collective. So thank you for tuning in. What a great week in trauma-informed care and adverse childhood experiences science. And we will, we may be taking a break for the next couple weeks. And so stay tuned. And you can always visit our website. So